begin by sharing some real experiences and reflections from the past few weeks. A second. Okay. Okay. So recently we traveled from the London Book Fair in March to the Oxford Literary Festival and then continued to the United States, where we encountered very real environments and people. And when you truly step into different culture environment, you begin to realize that many ideas we read in the books actually tested and verified in reality. For example, when it comes to cultural communication, many people assume that good content will naturally be seen. But in reality, that is not how it works. In the overseas publishing world, Chinese books occupy only a very small proportion, and within the already small percentage of non-English publications, Chinese works are even fewer. This means that from the very beginning, it is not an environment where you are easily being seen. At the same time, however, I also observed another reality. Once you enter real sceneries, such as book fairs, universities, or reader communities, there are still people genuinely engaging with meaningful content. And that kind of engagement is very real. So you will see that the world is actually operates in two layers or two levels. One is the surface level where information flows rapidly and everything seems abundant. And the others is deeper level when only a small number of people are truly searching for valuable content. And this led me to a very important realization that what truly endures is never about quantity, but about depth. And another strong insight I had is about ability. When we are in familiar environments, we often believe that tools can solve many problems, such as translation tools, AI, or various forms of assistance. But when you step into completely different environment, you realize that there are certain things tools simply cannot replace. For example, language, expression, and your inner stability when facing unfamiliar situations. And these qualities may not be obvious in familiar settings, but once the environment changes, they become significantly amplified. So during these days, I've kept asking myself one question: what is truly useful ability? What is truly useful ability? And I came to realize that many ideas, if they remain only at the level of understanding, do not carry real power. But once they enter reality and are repeatedly applied, they transform into real capability. The same applies to culture. Many people talk about bringing culture to the global stage, but the real challenge is not the culture itself, but whether there is a path and real experience behind it. The journey from being unknown to being understood is not abstract, but very concrete and experiential. So these days, I have become increasingly clear about one thing: anything that can truly endure over time is never accidental. accidental, and it is always supported by a deeper structure. So today we will return to a more fundamental question: why a person or an endeavor truly go far and last long? Okay, Chinese tea, black tea. Drinking tea and then reading is a very enjoying moment. And today's sharing will focus on a core framework from the book Five Dimensions of Great Achievement, 道德法术士, and one of Xuemo's book. So, and especially on one essential principle, virtue governs all things, and harmony unifies them into one. Okay. 德行论万物 Virtue governs all things. 和合成一位 and harmony unifies them into one. We often say that in Chinese, we often say 上天有好生之德, that heaven possesses the virtue of nurturing life. And what is this virtue of nurturing life? It is benevolence and kindness. 仁善 benevolence, and kindness. So after realizing the Dao, the great Dao, then one must embody this benevolence in conduct, never losing a kind and compassionate heart towards all beings and all things. In Chinese culture, heaven and earth are two of the most fundamental symbols. The Book of Change says, 易经, the Book of Change says, 天行健，君子以自强不息；地势坤，君子以厚德载物。As heaven moves with strength, a noble person strives tirelessly. As earth is receptive, a noble person carries all things with great virtue. I am especially fond of this line, particularly carrying all things with great virtue. 厚德载物, carrying all things with great virtue. Hi, I see some new friend here joining us, and we are talking about something deeper than success today. You can subscribe to our channel. So, 厚德载物, carrying all things with great virtue. But I would add two words to it, practicality, 厚德务实. To possess deep virtue and to remain grounded and practical. 厚德务实. To possess deep virtue and to remain grounded and practical. Great virtue does not only enable one to carry responsibility, but it also makes a person deeply practical, because such a person has gone through countless trials. Through refinement, their impulsiveness is worn away. Their desires are seen through. Their prejudices are dissolved. And what remains is the most genuine and simple essence of life. Yes, such a person remains active and engaged because they clearly understand the direction and also know how to move toward it. Therefore, they no longer act in a noisy or exaggerated way, but walk their path quietly, transforming all external glamour into a gentle light before their desk. This is in fact a higher level of strength, a quiet yet deeply stable state of being that does not need to prove itself outwardly. And Xuemo is also like this. In the early days, Mr. Xuemo will send his son a message in the morning that read, "Be vast enough to embrace all rivers." 海纳百 be vast enough to embrace all rivers and cultivate deep virtue with practicality. And this is not only the way of living, but also expectation for his son. And through such small but consistent actions, Xuemo gradually built a family culture and gently influenced his son over time. And many years later, under the influence of this environment, his son naturally became a person of kindness and integrity. So I see some new friends join us. We are talking about something about success, and good to have you here. This is not just a live stream, it's more like a space to think together. If you just joining, uh, we are just getting into it. So please subscribe to our channel. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support. And many years later, under the influence of the environment, Xuemo's son naturally became a person of kindness and integrity. Later, Xuemo students also came to appreciate this phrase and adopted it as their personal motto. And Xuemo believed that in the years to come, they too will embody this principle of embracing all things with broadness and acting with grounded virtue. In fact, many of them have already begun to live in this way, and they have all contributed in their own ways to the transformation of culture. There are people who embrace widely and act with deep practical virtue. Hello, welcome to our channel. I'm in Xuemo's team. Yes, I'm one of Xuemo's student. And we are introducing Xuemo's works to the world. Hope Xuemo's work can illuminate more people's inner light. And today we are sharing the basic core of success, 道德法术式. And you will realize that those who can truly carry great responsibilities are not necessarily the most capable, but those whose inner virtue is the most stable. And skills can be developed quickly, but virtue is the result of long-term accumulation. And when a person possesses this kind of stable virtue, what they build has the possibility to endure over time. And this is why we say that virtue nourishes all things. 德行润万物. Virtue nourishes all things because it does not control but influences in an invisible and continuous way. And when this influence expands over time, it gradually forms a state of harmony. And this is exactly what we refer to today as unity unity through harmony. 和合成一位 unity through harmony. Western culture in China has absorbed nearly all advanced cultures from around the world. And without Hersey culture, there would be no Dunhuang studies. Without Dunhuang studies, how could the grandeur and vastness of Chinese civilization be fully revealed? Among Western Chinese cultures, Dunhuang studies have had the greatest global impact, and they truly represent an immense and profound treasure. It is also a lasting landmark of pride of He's culture. And the true anyone here in the live stream heard about Dunhuang. Dunhuang, it is very famous. So true Dunhuang studies are not a single field, but a great cultural system that integrates Liangzhou, Gansu, Jiuquan, and many other Heshi cultural traditions. And also it carries some of the most essential elements of Chinese civilization. Among the cultural elements we know today, many have already disappeared elsewhere. Scholars are able to rediscover them precisely through the study of Dunhuang. And Dunhuang studies function like a vault, preserving many of the finest elements of Chinese culture. And in doing so, they continue to nourish the human spirit. And this, in essence, is what we mean by virtue nourishing all things. 德行润万物 virtue nourishing all things. So you will notice that true valuable culture is never created through expansion alone, but through long-term accumulation and preservation. It is not built overnight, but carefully protected and passed down through generations. And Dunhuang is more important not only because it preserved culture, but because it allows that culture to remain understandable and usable today. And this is precisely the power of nourishment. It does not compete or assert itself loudly, but it continues to exist and quietly influence. When such influence lasts long enough, it forms the roots of a civilization, and the same applies to an individual. Without inner accumulation, a person cannot carry greater responsibilities. If a person has only ability but lacks virtue, their influence cannot endure. Therefore, virtue nourishes all things. It is not only a description of culture, but also a standard for human development. And when a person embodies such virtue, their influence becomes long-lasting rather than temporary. And this sustainable influence eventually leads to harmony. And this is what we call unity through harmony. So we should model ourselves after heaven and learn from the virtue of heaven. 听得 the virtue of heaven. And even when we do good deeds, help others, and or make contributions, we should not become self-satisfied, nor should we go around seeking recognition. Hi, I see some new friends here. Welcome. So we are talking about growth and virtue and how to build something that cannot be taken away. So you can follow the channel if you want more of this kind of thinking. So this is one of the virtues we strive for, and it is something I often emphasize. I often say that the sun shines upon all things, yet it never believes it has done anything extraordinary. It does not consider itself important, and that is the virtue of heaven. We should be the same, never claiming credit for ourselves. Once we begin to take credit, the ego begins to inflate. And if recognition or reward does not follow, dissatisfaction arises, and even anger or resentment can take root. This not only damages one's virtue and leads to inner decline, but also brings negative energy into the surrounding environment. In this way, the good you have done is gradually cancelled out. But if you do not claim credit and simply act in accordance with circumstances, seeing it as your natural responsibility, you are able to refine and perfect yourself through the process of action. And you enrich your life and make your existence more meaningful. So therefore, a person's virtue and value are always determined by their actions. Okay, wait a second. I'm going to take something. Get something. So, person's virtue and value are determined by their actions, by what they have done and what they have said. This must be remembered, and one should constantly reflect upon oneself. One must understand that if one can become like heaven, able to dissolve the troubles of others and ease the conflicts of the world, while never claiming credit and becoming arrogant and still remaining actively engaged in action. And this is itself is already a profound form of happiness. So you will realize that a higher virtualizing acting without a sense that I am the one doing it. It is not the absence of action, but the absence of attachment. It is not the absence of contribution, but the refusal to turn contribution into transaction. The moment we begin to calculate gain and loss, virtue starts to distort. The moment we expect returns, the inner freedom is lost. True virtue is therefore a silent form of influence. It is not as direct as force, yet it endures far longer than force. It is not as visible as rules, yet it penetrates more deeply into the human heart. This is why, within five dimensions, virtue is the core that connects everything. Without virtue, methods become rigid, and skills become distorted, and influence cannot last. Only when a person embodies the virtue of heaven can their actions truly nourish all things silently. And this is exactly what we meant today by virtue nourishing all things. I see some familiar names here. Thank you for coming back again. So every time we are sharing and enjoying the contents of our live stream, we are actually building something inside ourselves. So this very process itself stabilizes your inner state, strengthens your virtue, and gradually brings you closer to the person you aspire to become. Because growth is not something separate from action, but something that unfolds through it. And very often, it appears that you are helping others, but actually you are, but in reality, you are shaping and elevating yourself. Because the more you do, you act, the faster you grow, the greater your contribution to society becomes, and the more your value naturally expands. If every one of us can allow virtue to nourish all things, extend ourselves to others, and treat people with sincerity, then what follows is harmony, which manifests as balance, peace, and natural alignment in relationships and the world. And this kind of harmony is not artificially constructed, but emerges naturally after virtue has been accumulated and embodied over time. And our ancestors used the concept of zhong, or the center, to represent this state, seeing it as a sense of balance in life and also a deep form of harmony within existence. And this center does not mean mediocrity or compromise, but rather a precise and appropriate way of being that aligns naturally with reality. So the balance of life is the foundation of the world, and the harmony of life is its highest principle, and neither of us these can be disrupted without consequences. Once balance is lost, system falls into disorder, and once harmony is lost, relationships begin to break apart. As long as balance and harmony are maintained, heaven and earth can remain in their proper positions, and all things can function naturally. So I think remain the proper position and find your proper position is very, very important. So the things can function naturally, and everything then arises and declines according to its own inherent laws. And this is precisely what Lao Tzu meant when he said that Dao follows nature. 道法自然，道 follows nature. So Xuemo is the one in the poster on the background. Okay. And Xuemo has written over 80 titles with 200 editions and have been translated into 28 languages. So what we are sharing here is also based on Xuemo methodology and based on his interpretation of the Chinese traditional wisdom from the Dao De Jing. So you will notice that when a person truly enters the centered state, the actions are no longer reactive or confrontational, but becomes integrative and harmonizing. And they no longer attempt to control everything, but instead understand patterns and align with themselves with them. And this is why those who possess true virtue often do not appear forceful, yet their outcomes remain consistently stable. Because what they rely on is not personal force, but a larger order that they are aligned with. Within the framework of the five dimensions, this is where Tao and virtue begins to merge into one unified expression. When Tao provides direction and virtue provides the foundation, and methods and techniques will not deviate from their proper course, and influence or momentum that emerge naturally rather than being artificially forced. So in the end, you will see that truly enduring and endeavor is not engineered into existence, but grown into existence over time. It is formed through continuous action, adjustment, balance, and harmony, unfolding naturally rather than being imposed. And this is precisely the true foundation of what we call lasting and enduring success. 基业长青 lasting and enduring success. So the true foundation of the lasting and enduring success. So for an individual life, following the Tao and nature means abiding in one's original intention or original aspiration. While for enterprises, societies, and nations, following the Tao means achieving harmony. This original intention is not a temporary emotion, but a stable inner orientation that endures over time. And this harmony is not superficial calmness, but a deep structural balance within a wisdom, within a system. It is a naturally formed holistic beauty where the diverse elements coexist and yet maintain balance with one another. All operations within it do not damage the internal harmony, and as a result, each element's value and beauty are amplified. In such a state, no part exists in isolation, but each part supports and enhances the other. In Lao's word, 和之至也，异其共赢. This is ultimate state of harmony, which can also be understood as mutual benefit or win-win. And true win-win is not merely a distribution of benefits, but a structural alignment that allows all sides to grow together. In China, our ancestors said that 和气生财. It means harmony brings prosperity. So harmony brings prosperity. And on the surface, this refers to a pleasant attitude, including one's words, expressions, and ways of serving others. Such an attitude can attract more customers and generate greater returns for a business. Even achieving harmony at this service level is already valuable. However, this kind of harmony is only the utmost expression. Of course, harmony also has deeper layers of meaning. It is a kind of atmosphere created by the interaction of multiple factors, or in other words, it can be understood as an energetic field. And this field influences not only outcomes, but also the mindset of the people within it. So it is not only about being pleasant in attitude or service, but more importantly about the harmony within the organizational culture. And once a culture is formed, it continuously shapes how people think and act. Okay, a little bit here because it is late at night and it is getting cold. Groupthink makes success. So we also acknowledge that where there are people, there is complexity, and the marketplace can feel like a battlefield. So whether inside or outside an organization, there are countless conflicts and sources this harmony. And this is part of reality and cannot be completely eliminated. However, building a harmonious culture environment is entirely possible, and it is precisely something that organizations must consciously strive to achieve. So you will realize that companies' true competitiveness often comes not from resources, but from the field it creates. And this field is formed through virtue, culture, and consistent long-term actions. When this field is filled with opposition, internal energy is consumed. When this field is harmonious, energy begins to accumulate. And this accumulation eventually transforms into momentum or influence. And therefore, influence is not artificially created, but naturally grows out of harmony. When an organization achieves this kind of harmony, it is no longer just a structure, but becomes a living system. And only a living system has the potential to truly endure over time. This is the fundamental logic behind lasting and enduring success. So a harmonious organizational culture is built upon shared goals and shared values that are recognized and accepted by everyone. I'm trying to stand up. The words are so entirely enlightening. Thank you. So a harmonious organizational culture is built upon shared goals and shared values that are recognized and accepted by everyone. Because without a common foundation, no true alignment can be sustained. And what we call harmony without uniformity, uniformity means that there can be many differences among us. These differences include diverse perspectives, varied personality, different ways of thinking, and different approaches to work. But yet, at the same time, we must share a common vision, a shared goal to strive toward, and a unified set of values. With this foundation, no matter how many differences exist in the details, we can still work together effectively. And from this, a harmonious cultural environment can emerge, which is what we call consensus. So next, for your question, actually you can find the answer from the book Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart, and this book is available on Amazon. The little yellow book Reclaim the Throne of Your Heart, available on Amazon, and you can search for Xuemo, Xuemo, Xuemo. Yes, you will find the answer. Yes. So it is about the yoga spirit series, and today we are talking about the wisdom from the Dao De Jing, and through Xuemo's work, Xuemo's interpretation of Dao De Jing. So this applies to an enterprise, to a nation, and even to the entire world. That is what truly gives meaning to the idea that harmony creates, or harmony brings prosperity. Moreover, harmony does not only generate wealth, but also give rise to many forms of goodness. It allows each individual to realize their value and grow in the process. And this kind of growth is not only about individual capability, but also about the elevation of the entire system. This world is diverse, and humanity faces challenges from many different directions. This includes wars, diseases, natural disasters, and many unknown domains yet to be understood. At a deep level, many of these problems are rooted in imbalance and disharmony. And therefore, we need harmony without uniformity, sincere cooperation, and a shared willingness to face challenges together. Only in this way can we achieve mutual benefit and sustainable success in this era and in the future. Okay, I tried standing while doing the live stream, and I think it's better to sit down. Interesting. So you will notice that differences are allowed while goals are unified. A system begins to generate real vitality. If there is only uniformity without diversity, the system becomes rigid. If there is only diversity without unity, the system falls into chaos. True harmony is a dynamic balance between diversity and unity. And this balance is precisely the embodiment of what we call the center. And within the 5 dimensions, this capability emerged from the interaction between virtue and structure. When virtue ensures direction and inclusiveness, and structure ensures order and boundaries, the system can continue to evolve without destructive conflict. Skills become more effective, and influence or momentum arises naturally. So, in the end, you will see that a truly powerful system is not built through control, but grow through harmony. And this is the ultimate answer to lasting and enduring success. So, thank you all for being here, for the new friends and also the old friends here. Thank you for your time, and you can share our channel to more of your friends. And thank you so much. So, just now we talked about virtue nourishing all things, and once a personal system possesses virtue, the next step is to move into a more concrete dimension. So the live session is it's called fa or structure or method. So because virtue alone is not enough, virtue determines direction, while structure determines how things actually operate. So the main topic of this live session is about the virtue nourishing all things.